Hello everybody. Today I'm going to be discussing my technology book review project, and the book that I chose to review was Blink: The Power of Thinking Without Thinking by Malcolm Gladwell. In this book, the main topic and discussion throughout the book is that decisions that can take days, weeks, and even months of planning can in many cases have the same result as a split-second decision. This book really dives into how we think without thinking, the two types of decision-making processes, the long drawn-out decision-making process, which is a conscious process, and the split-second decision-making process, which is unconscious. Malcolm also defines thin slicing in this book as the ability of our unconscious to find patterns in situations and behaviors based on very narrow slices of experience. This book really just has a bunch of case studies and scientific experiments and real life stories and situations that help us understand how we make decisions. And I found it to be very interesting. One of the main points in this book is more information always better than less information when making a decision? Time is not always on our side to be able to weigh all the options and all the pros and cons. By thin slicing, our brain subconsciously makes a decision based on experience and knowledge without us even understanding what is going on. Most would call this the gut instinct. So my favorite example of this was the firefighter that was called out to the house fire, pretty standard. However, when he got there with his team and tried to put out the fire, it wasn't reacting how it usually should react, and so he made that gut instinct to pull his guys out, and thankfully he did, because the floor collapsed right after they got out, and it actually turned out that the fire was in the basement and not on that first level. So he didn't have the time to weigh all the pros and the cons and what was going on, but his gut told him to get out, and he got out. So based on his experience, his gut told him what to do. The next main point in this book was how are decisions influenced? And decisions can be influenced by describing how a snap decision is made can sometimes distort the actual process. Images and associations can impact our snap decisions and presumptions we have about individuals. Experiences can also influence how a decision is quickly come about. And this all raises the question, are we really biased? So my favorite example of this was the tennis player that was trying to describe how he made a snap decision, or how he played tennis, and when the ball would come to him, he said that he would flip his wrist once it got so far away from him, and that's how he presumed he made that decision. But actually, through video and monitoring after it, he actually didn't flip his wrist until the ball was hit. So in him describing how a snap decision was made, it was actually distorted. Okay, so the next important point from this book is what we want really what we want? Our actions do not always follow what our mind is thinking, and our behavior can sometimes tell a different story. Also, experiences that we have already had can influence our association with things and people. And my favorite experience or example of this was the speed dating example, where participants in the speed dating process would fill out a questionnaire of what they were looking for in an individual. Then they would go through the speed dating process, and then if they had any matches, they would fill out a questionnaire of why they thought they matched up with that particular person. And in many of the cases, their snap decision to choose that person to further on with didn't match up with what they had thought they actually wanted when they started the speed dating. And finally, how does this relate to technology and teaching? Data and technology can be fun, engaging, and an important part of education. However, our gut instincts and split-second decision-making skills can prove to be just as accurate in many situations. Our decision-making skills are sharpened through practice and experience. We should not be afraid to lean on our thin slicing skills in this time of advancing technology. Also, this would help students be aware of what influences their decision, especially regarding dangers, racism, sexism, and prejudice, to reinforce being respectful to one another. And then technology is good. However, we should not solely depend on this. We need to make sure we are aware of how things come about and not rely on the answer just being there. Careful planning, analysis, and technology can not always trump experiences and intuition.